And when I read the scriptures, I try to use them to come to conclusions and to the truth. So, and from what I can see, so depending on what we do with wine or alcohol and what it leads us to, if it leads us to sin, that determines whether it's good or evil or good or bad for us, kind of thing. So it's like, that's why, like, I've said before, like, I'm always big on play on words too, and like there's lots of different play on words that are in the Bible to do with, like, these things. And like, so like I made in a meme, like, if you're Adam, man, Eve, evil, trick you. So like, or if you're Adam, man, Satan, and evil, trick you. You know what I mean? So just to play on those words, I thought, and then like also like the Garden of Eden, like, because they ate there. Eden, Garden of Eating, Eden, Garden of Eden, eaten. So, but I'm like, I think it's a valid point to mention that it's like, what makes you think that they still wouldn't be trying to get you to partake of the fruit of good and evil? Because it's said to be guarded in the Garden of Eden now. It says like the cherubim or whatever, the angels are guarding it with this fiery swords and this and that. So it's like, that's what we're told, but we're also told Satan is a liar, and we can clearly see he is still lying in the world today, and has tons of minions in the world lying today. Like that spirit of evil is still in the world today. So like, why would we be told to guard ourselves if he weren't? You know what I mean? Like, he clearly is. That's the whole point of the gospel, is to like warn us and guard us from the evil and the sin and from like Satan. Like, there's tons of prayers saying like, guard me from the evil one and this and that. So it's like, wine and alcohol can be good or evil depending on whether it leads us to sin or not. So it appears to be a fruit of good and evil, depending on what it leads or misleads us to. So I think that's just a valid point to take into consideration, because the symbolism in the whole story of it, men were misled to sin by Lucifer misleading Eve. And so a woman was misled by an evil angel to partake of a fruit that leads to good, that is called good and evil, and shows the knowledge of good and evil. And so like, even when you think about that, her name's Eve, and the play on words for that, evil. So Satan and evil trick you. You know what I mean? Like that, and they're kind of in on it together, it seems like, for misleading man. So it's kind of like, that could be a play on words or symbolic, you know what I mean? So but it says that man did not partake. It was Eve and woman that partook of the fruit and then gave it to Adam. So it wasn't like, it doesn't say that like Adam was with her and chose to do that. It was like, it says that Eve did that, fell to sin, then came and gave Adam some of the fruit. So there isn't even anything saying that Adam knew when he was eating that fruit that it was that fruit. Like saying that, oh, here, try this. This is that fruit that God told us not to touch. It was just like, she could have just gave it to him and then he just ate it. And then boom, oops. No, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, that was that fruit that we were told not to eat. He could have been like, what? Like, why'd you give me that? Why'd you do that? Oh, because the snake came along and said it was good and blah, 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 blah. So there's like, you know what I mean? There's the story basically testifies to that. It doesn't say that Adam even had any knowledge of that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't, from what I've seen and what I remember when reading it, I don't think it said that Adam even had any knowledge that it was the fruit that he was partaking of. So he seems kind of blameless, and like, if he didn't know that, then that's like blameless. So like, why would he have to go to death if he didn't have any conscious choice and decision to make that free will choice to make that? If it was just given to him as a deception, You know what I mean? So maybe she did tell him, "Oh, try this," and then he'd be like, "Isn't that the fruit that God told us?" Yeah, but you got to try it. You know what I mean? Blah 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 blah. It's like, and then if he tried it willingly, knowing, then yeah, he still rebelled, and that makes sense. That it's like, yeah, you both chose wrong. You know what I mean? So maybe that was. I don't really remember. I'd have to read that part of Genesis again. I think, from what I remember, I don't. She could have just gave it to him without him knowing. You know what I mean? So it's like. But either way, I feel like it's a valid. I feel like it's a valid point to mention that, like symbolically, it's still a fruit. Wine is a fruit, the fruit of the vine. You know what I mean? The fruit of the vine. It's a fruit, and there's no mention of this fruit of good and evil, what it looked like or anything like that. And when it's turned in, the wine is fruit in a different form, and it can be good or evil depending on good and evil. So like depending on if it leads us to sin or not, it can be good and evil. You know what I mean? So that could be. So there's a fruit that's good and evil, you know what I mean, depending on what we do with it and what it leads us to. So, and, so I don't see, I'm kind of like, we should take that into consideration, you know what I mean? Like, symbolically, like, if you think about that, it's like hint, that could be like, there's lots of mysteries in the Bible and stuff like that. So, it's not, there's parables and riddles and things like that and like hints. So it's like, for me, when I observe it, I'm like, okay, well, wine is a fruit, and if some people partake of it like Jesus and it doesn't lead them to sin. Some partake of it, go on a rager and kill themselves or someone else, and it leads them to death. You know what I mean? So that's good. That can be a fruit of good and evil. So it's like, whoa, like, okay, let's take a look at this and maybe let that influence my decision whether to partake or not. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I just wanted to make that point. And but yeah, I wanted to look over that part where it's like, I don't know if Adam is said to have known when she gave him the fruit, like, oh, this is the fruit that we were told not to go, and then he ate, or if he did know, you know what I mean? Because if he didn't know, then Adam was blameless in that. So that, like, there's nothing just about man getting punished for that. You know what I mean? Like, that there would be nothing just about that if Adam didn't know. So I imagine he did have some sort of knowledge that he partook of, was partaking of what he was told not to. Because if he didn't, that wouldn't make any sense that he would go to death and have to go to death when he was completely tricked. He had no knowledge. He's blameless in that. That's like someone roofing you, basically. You know what I'm saying? So that wouldn't be fair or just at all. You know what I mean? So I imagine he did. So he most likely did. You know what I mean? And it probably testifies to that. I'll have to look it up again, but I mean, I can come to that conclusion that he must have had some sort of knowledge that it was the one that he was told not to touch, or else how could God be seen as just and good? Through that. You know what I mean? So, but but the thing too is it also says like, oh, they ate together, right? So it sounds like they ate together for the first time, not like Eve ate by herself, then gave it to her husband, because it says when they ate of the fruit, both of their eyes were open, then they realized they were naked. So it seems like she maybe brought the fruit back to her husband. Oh, this snake told me that this is good this will give us wisdom, knowledge, or whatever, blah, 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 blah. And then they ate it together for the first time. So that, like, I'm not sure if that's how it went. Apparently that's how it did, because that's how it makes sense, because it said, oh, then right away their eyes were open and they got scared and they realized that they were naked. So if Eve would have known that already, if she would have done it just by herself, you know what I mean? So she would have just ate it, and then she would have realized she was naked, got scared, and probably ran back to her husband and not offered it to him. So I'm sure that's how it happened. It's probably in the Bible that way. I probably don't even have to look it up. I can still just come to that conclusion in my head. But even if it's like, you know what I'm saying? So wanted to point that out. So like there's things like that, that it's like conclusions can be made, from studying the scriptures. Yeah, I don't like to assume though, so I'm going to read it all again and go over the details just to make sure, because there are things like that where I'd be like, that doesn't make sense, you know what I mean? Because if Adam had no knowledge of what he was choosing, he would have been blameless in that. So, you know what I mean? And that doesn't make sense that he would have to go to death and that all men would have to suffer because of basically being roofied by a woman for the first time. You know what I mean? So, and that's basically, when you look at the story, that's basically what's happening to Eve. It's like we're basically witnessing the first misleading of except for it was lying to her to get her to partake in something. So it wasn't like he just slipped it to her like a roofie, so it wasn't like woman's first roofing being witnessed or anything, you know what I mean? It was more just like convincing her to do something like harmful to herself, you know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, so see, like this here it is. The woman said to the serpent, "We may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, but God did say, you must not eat the fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it, or you will die." "You will not surely die," the serpent said to the woman, "for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. She also gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate it. So why wasn't there no conversation between Adam and this serpent? And why is he allowing woman to make his decisions when he's told to be the head of the woman? And then the eyes of both of them were open, and they realized they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves. Then man heard the sound. Then the man and his wife heard the sound of the Lord God as he was walking in the garden. See, so it doesn't even go into details about how that really happened. When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. So right there, when it says she took some and ate it, her eyes would have been opened right away, and she would have known she was naked and that it was bad. So why would you give it to your husband to do? She would have been like, uh-oh, and she would have felt like fear right away and known that she was naked. She would have felt that. Then it says she also gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate it. So that doesn't really make sense. So apparently it's painting a picture of them eating it together for the first time, and that Adam was with them. But if Adam was with them, then why is there no conversation between Adam and this serpent? Why is the serpent speaking specifically to the woman, and why is Adam not interceding and that doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? It doesn't really go into details. It's like very vague on the details of that. And it doesn't really make sense, because it's like she took some and ate it. She also gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate it. Like, no questions asked. Like, from Adam, absolutely no questions asked. It was just Eve that was allowed to do all the questioning and talk to the serpent, and then Adam just blindly listens to this woman and takes some without any questions or objections. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't really make much sense. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like that's not very realistic in a situation. Like, that's not a realistic situation. Like, so there's parts of me where I'm like, okay, so maybe this story is just symbolic. You know what I mean? Because or maybe it actually happened this way, or maybe it's just a story and it's symbolic of something. You know what I mean? But apparently this happened, is what they're claiming, but when I think about it, like, say if I was the first man created, And then God's like, oh, you're lonely, so I'll make you a woman. And then he made me a woman. He's like, oh, you're like, this is your wife. Like, you're like the head of the woman. Like, this is your wife. She's going to protect her and this and that. I guess there was nothing to protect from. And I don't really know if he would have even been the head of woman, or if that authority didn't come till later when they went to the earth and then they were instructed the order of things. Because there was clearly a threat in the garden, though. But either way, like, that doesn't make sense. That it's just like, when the woman saw the fruit, it's like, what? So, like, the woman's wearing the pants in this relationship? Like, she's, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, she's just talking to the serpent, and Adam's just sitting in the background, just like, yeah, I'll just let my wife, like, talk to him about eating this fruit that God said will kill us. I'm not gonna, like, intercede or, like, object at all. I'll just totally eat it, and I have no opinion on the matter. I'm just... you know what I mean? Like, this must have been the most, like, laid back or naive. Obviously, he could be naive. It's like, these are the first people, you know what I mean? So they would obviously be naive, but, like, he didn't ask any questions. No questions asked. Like, you know? Like, that comes off a little far-fetched and hard to believe, you know what I mean? That they aren't going into those kinds of details, that Adam didn't ask any questions. It kind of does seem like it says, when the woman saw that the fruit of the blah, 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 she took some and she ate it. So it says that Eve ate first. So her eyes would have been open first. She would have known she was naked first, and she wouldn't be trying to pass that off to her husband, to Adam. You know what I mean? That doesn't make sense. And it's like, she also gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate it. So he was with her, but he's not asking any questions. He's just okay, yeah, okay. I take this fruit that God says is going to kill me, and I let my wife make the decision to get us killed. Like, it doesn't make much sense. You know what I mean? Like, but. Either way, if it happened that way, I guess it happened this way, but that doesn't go into details about that. And then, like, if he was there, then it's kind of saying, like, oh, and then it goes on saying, like, oh, for it was the woman that got deceived. So I'll put, like, you will crawl on your belly and you'll eat the dust all the days of your life, and I'll put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. To the woman he said, I will greatly increase. Like, even that. Cursed are you above all the livestock and the wild animals. You will crawl on your belly, and you will eat dust all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring. So, between your offspring, that's not saying that the woman and the snake are going to have offspring together. It must be saying that, like, it's going to put between the snake's children and the woman's children are going to be enemies of each other. So, he will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. To the woman he said, I will greatly increase your pain in childbearing. With pain you will give birth to children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. Okay, so see, that's where he told him that the husband will rule over the woman. But I don't know how good of a decision that seems to be, since he didn't appear to interject and intercede and lead the woman in the first place. And he will rule over you. To Adam he said, because you listened to your wife and ate from the tree about which I commanded you must not eat of it, cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil you will eat of it all the days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your brow you will eat your food until you return to the ground, since from it you were taken. For dust you are, and to dust you will return. Adam named his wife Eve, because she would become the mother of all the living. So Adam called the woman Eve. So apparently Adam named all the animals and Eve. Yeah, so he was like, yeah, you're Eve. So evil evil will do that. Yeah. Don't worry, kids, evil do that. Evil do that. Evil do this. Evil do that. So you basically, that's what it like. So like, I don't know about that. When I read this, it's just like, I don't know. It's a little hard to believe, obviously, because it's like, what, the husband's not gonna interject at all. He didn't even say anything, apparently. Like, it was just the woman, and he just listened. It says, just because you listened to your wife and ate from the tree. So apparently this Eve just had a conversation with the serpent in front of Adam, and he just kind of sat back and listened, and then obeyed his wife. This guy just watched. It's kind of like this guy kind of sounds like a caveman or something, like sitting back. Creature talk to a woman, and then just watches her. She just makes the choice. Here, have some of this. No questions asked. Just it's kind of a funny picture. It's sort of not supposed to be funny because this is like the downfall of man and the sin entering into the world and the fall of the ageless. So like the evil one. So, but still, it's kind of like, what? This guy didn't even say anything. He just listened. So he showed some sort of obedience to his wife's judgment, but not to God. So he just chose to listen to her over God. I don't mean to laugh, but it's like he's just sitting back, just listening. Like, he's just listening to the snake just comes up, starts talking. He asks no questions. He doesn't interject, and then just, okay. I'm going to call you Eve now. Eve will do that. So, I mean, Adam must have been, like, one of the most naive, obviously, because he's, like, the first, right? He would have been, like, the most naive man, basically, and he's listening to a woman over God, so it's like there's kind of a lesson there, you know what I mean, too, that's one of the first lessons tried to basically to man that you can learn from that is like you're supposed to listen to God over a woman, you know, like don't let the woman lead you to death, or the fruit of the vine lead you to, or the fruit leads you to death type deal, or Satan kind of thing. And then but it makes sense because, like, you know, Adam's given this so-called helper, so he's obviously going to think he was told by God that this woman was going to help him. So he's trusting God's word and following that woman because he's like, yo, God told me this is my helper, so she's going to help me. So why would he tell me that she's my helper if she's not going to help me? So in that way, it's kind of like, yo, like, if the woman was going to mislead, then why did you tell him that she was going to help him? He trusted your word to listen to his helper. You know what I mean? So, like, even that doesn't really make much sense. And, like, there's still obedience in Adam doing that because he was told that this woman is going to help him, that this is his helper, not lead him to death. You know what I mean? Like, so, but then, like, you know, you picture you're a lonely man, and then you're given this wife, so it's like, you know, and he has a wife now, he slept with her, so I mean, he's obviously just wants to please his wife, and, you know, like, he's basically, it's his only that's where he's getting, that's his companion, you know what I mean? Like, in a more, like, modern day term, like, he's basically just trying to get that ass kind of shit, you know what I mean? She has breasts and God doesn't, so he was obviously probably more distracted and concerned with keeping his wife happy than God, because he's like, yo, this is the woman that I want, you know what I mean? God, like, even though he like the awareness is like, yo, God's the one who even provided that woman, those breasts, all that for you. You know what I mean? So, but you know what I mean? I'm sure that physical appeal of the woman being more sexually attractive and appealing to him than God would sway his decision in obeying her instead of him. You know what I mean? Like it just shows the sway of women over men too, because it's like, yo, if it's like how dudes will shiest a guy for a woman. You know what I mean? Like how, you know what I mean? Because it's like their choice is between what, being in good standing with another male, or the woman. You know what I mean? Or like, so, and when guys are, are like thinking with their dicks half the time, they're thinking with the wrong head. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, that's how it is. So it's like, but that part doesn't make sense too, because it's like, and I'm not trying to be crude, I try to work on my perverse language, but that's like the only way I can really put it into terms to try to relate to like this generation. It's like Adam's trying to keep that ass and get that ass kind of thing. Like he's trying to keep his companion, you know what I mean? Like his wife, he's trying to keep his wife happy, like happy wife, happy life or something, you know what I mean? Instead of like happy God, happy broad, or happy bod, you know what I mean? Kind of thing. But yeah, so like, but that still doesn't make sense, because like Adam's still obeying God in that, because you told him that this woman's gonna help him. So where's that deception coming from? You know what I mean? Like, why did you, like, what kind of a helper is that? What kind of, like, how much can we trust your decision to even make a helper? This is the helper you gave us? She helped lead us to death and this sin and all this chaos. So it's like, do you really even know what you're doing? That's going to make people question, like, when you made the woman, like, why did you make her so disobedient to your word, and us so disobedient to your word? So that makes people question, you know what I mean? So it's like, that's going to make people question how much God really knows, like, that's why it's like there's obviously our individual decision. He's not in control of what we choose. You know what I mean? Like, he could force us, but then we'd be robots and we wouldn't even be an individual and have a choice. So that wouldn't make sense either. Like, what kind of a creation is that? You're just basically creating, you know what I mean? That's like, it's just that, like, that would just be, you know what I mean? It's just, I don't know, the whole story, it just, a lot of that, so that doesn't really make sense, you know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, like, I'll make you a helper, then she leads him to death. So, like, what kind of a helper was that? And why would you tell him that she's going to help? Like, you weren't specific about what she was going to help. She still helped lead to death. But overall, that's not helping. You know what I mean? But unless it gets us to the end result of all the evil eventually being wiped out and the good being left and upheld by God in the long run, then they did help to separate the goats from the sheep and the disobedient from the obedient. That kind of thing, you know what I mean? So, like, for this to make any sense, we need a good overall ending from God to show that He's true to His word. It will wipe out all the evil, and so we need a good end result to be able to trust that you're a good God. You know what I mean? So, and a lot of people, they're so off the wrong path and seeing so much destruction that it's so, like, it's so challenging for them to ever come to that conclusion that you're a good God when you're. Look at if you're a good God, why is your creation so shit? You know what I mean? Like, because there's no end result yet, so we have to, from our own, we can't see everything, so all we can see is killing, all these sins, all this craziness, and then, but when then we're supposed to be like, oh, he's a good God though, but he made all this. You know what I mean? So, like, that's how people try to sum it up, like, in a human way, but it's like, we don't know God's plan, and in the long run, it's like he is separating the obedient from the, those who want to go to death from those who want to go to life, those who love to those who hurt. You know what I mean? So, like, we can't see the overall big picture of God's plan unfolding. You know what I mean? So, but I can see I can't see it all, but I can see what I can read in the Bible, and I can trust and witness that, okay, there are evil beings working through some of these human beings. There's evil spirit. Some of these people are Antichrist. I can see that. I can see 666 going up all over everything. I can see some proof of God. I've had spiritual experiences. I know there's more than just this physical reality and things like that. So, like, I can see that. You know what I mean? That much. But I'm still blind to the overall thing of it. You know what I mean? So it's like, but, I mean, so, but you see the problem there where it's like, oh, I will give you a helper. So that's going to guide us, man, to trust in this helper, this woman. So like, why are you going to instill that kind of thing in a man? Like, you think you'd give a warning and be like, yo, there's a serpent in this garden with you that, you know, or there's the potential that beings may make you rebel. Not make you, but may try to influence you to rebel and disobey what I'm telling you right now. And that even this woman that I'm giving you, she may not help you. Like, you think you'd warn of the possibility of that. You know what I mean? As a fair warning. Other than being like, oh, I'm going to give you a helper. And then, what kind of helper is this? Like, you tell, like, I'm supposed to trust you, this woman came from you. So I'm supposed to be trusting that this came from you. You know what I mean? From like a kid's perspective, they get born or created and they're like in an environment and they're like, ooh, this guy created me and I exist here now. So then he's just like, hey, apparently he gave me all these good trees and good things. So you're like, this guy's a good creator. And then like he's giving me a lot of stuff and he's teaching me stuff. You know what I mean? So and then he's like, oh, I'm going to make you a helper so you're not lonely. So he's like, right on, you know. And then so you'd obviously think that this woman's going to be good and lead you to good things. She came from God, but then she came from you. Well, she's like a part of you too. So and you came from God. So you're like, okay, so like there's no threat yet. So you're just naive and trusting of everything, you know. And then he tells you not to do something, and then all of a sudden this helper that's supposed to be like your wife and helper leads you to death, and then you're like, and that's your fault that you created, like you had this helper given to you. Like, it kind of sounds like oh, it's not good for man to be alone. It kind of sounds like he would have been better off alone since the woman led him to that. You know, misled him to that. And same with the serpent. So if Adam was just alone and there was no Lucifer there, no serpent, no snake, and no Eve, he would have just been in a garden by himself eating fruit and chilling. He would have been lonely, but I'm sure he'd be better off than men murdering each other, raping children, pedophilia, and sin and craziness and evil that we're all stuck in this world. You know what I mean? And it seems like it wouldn't be too bad being alone, you know, with a tree with all that provided. But then he doesn't have the love of a woman, but he would have the love of God still. God could still go pay him a visit in that garden and be like, hey, son, like, you know what I mean? So that seems like that would have been better than what was wrong with man being alone. So why weren't you his companion? He wasn't alone. God was there with him. So he wasn't alone. So why weren't you just his companion? Like, God wasn't enough for Adam? That he needed a woman? Why? What? Like, that's like almost like saying that God isn't good enough of a helper. You know what I mean? So that doesn't even make sense either. Like, that doesn't make sense. And like, a lot of this stuff doesn't make sense when you really think about it. It's like, oh, it's not good for man to be alone. He's not alone. He's got you there with him. You're God. So he's not alone. So is that what, hinting that God is man and man is God? Because God's said to be a man, but he said not to be. He said to be the spirit of God. So like that's the whole thing that I question too, because like the whole thing with like, oh, then God came into flesh and Jesus, and there's going to come a man forward that's going to claim that he's God and this and that. But God's described as spirit, as the spirit of love and good, not as a man. But the forms that he takes, he presents himself as a father, as a male. We're made in his image, kind of thing. But we're not God. We have the potential to be one with him in spirit, but we're still not God. Like we can't consider ourselves God. That's what like God kicks people out of heaven for, like trying to act like they're God. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's really. Oh, God bless you. I know it's not good to hold in your sneeze. They say it could pop blood vessels and stuff. I've always held my sneezes in. God bless me. Yeah. So either way, I just wanted to address that again. But yeah, it's like this guy must have been like, to me, Adam seemed like he was pretty obviously some sort of just young kid, innocent son that didn't really know. He's doing his best to trust the situation he's in. You wouldn't think that God's going to give you a helper that's going to lead you to your death, or that all you know of God so far is that he's good and he's giving you good things, and all of a sudden this serpent comes along and misleads to evil things. You know what I mean? And so you'd be like, where did this serpent come from if God's good? That doesn't make sense. Why would this serpent be evil? Where did he come from? if you're good and you created all things, then why is this serpent so evil? How can we see that as good? You know what I mean? Like, no, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. So like, like when I view it overall, sometimes I'm like, okay, well, it describes. The Bible does say that the angels were made by God. It says that like the sons were there when He created man, like when and the earth and all that. It said the sons were with Him. We'll make them in our image, So you know what I mean? So that's like they're joined. That's kind of like implies that God and the angels are like one right there, right? So it's like, but so were the angels created, or is this just a bunch of spirits, of good spirits that's been around forever and serving and this and that, and then they just basically had a disagreement, got into a war and separated, and now they're battling over who's the ultimate authority kind of thing. But it's not even that, because like they all know God is the ultimate authority, you know what I mean? So like, but it still doesn't make sense, because it's like, why, like, you're good, but you give potential to do evil, which is supposed to show that you're good, because you're not a dictator forcing His will, just consequences for those who go to evil and choose evil. Which, I can see that's good. Like, you're not forcing anyone, but you're trying to make it plain as day, where it's like, this leads to death, this leads to life. Choice is yours. I'm going to make it very as obvious to you as possible that this is a no-brainer decision for you. You know what I mean? To obey me and not them, kind of thing. So like that's what I try to do. Like I'm trying to like obey God and not care about like the man. Like I care about them, but like not obey like and put the world and man and woman or earthly things before God, because like that clearly leads to death. God leads to life. So, but trying to get a grasp of like, because like people, trying to figure out like, yo, okay, God's not responsible for their decisions. That's the thing that the problem with the gospel, where people have struggles where they try to put it all on God for our decisions. Like there's no individual responsibility. Like Adam and Eve didn't make their own personal choice. Like God set it up for them to choose that. No, they're given the option and they're given the teaching, and they still chose. You know what I mean? So it's like, but it's hard to see that like God is a good teacher when the student isn't listening. He obviously didn't do a good enough job teaching and stressing to them the seriousness of like, yo, do not touch this tree. Really, really bad things will happen if you touch this. No matter who comes along and tries to tell you that it otherwise, listen to what I'm saying so you do not touch this tree and die. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta really stress that to people, you know what I mean? So it's like, maybe that's what He's doing through me right now for you guys, and that's what apparently the Spirit is doing. Do not touch this tree of sin and evil, or of good and evil, of both, which that hints at the lukewarmness. Do not be an in-between type person. You know what I mean? So like I see like a lot more symbolism in the stories than realistic sometimes, but if the Word said that actually happened, then that actually happened that way. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so, because that's God's Word, so I trust it, I do my best. So like, it's just hard for me to envision it, because it's still like, it comes off a little hard to believe, because you're like, yo, like, this guy was told, like, it's like if someone came along to me and was like, yo, here's welcome to my house, you know what I mean, my ranch, and my orchard. These are all good trees, but don't touch that one. That one's poisonous, and it has poison berries. You'll die. Don't touch it. And then the house owner leaves, and then I'm there at his house, and someone, a guest of his, comes along, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm like, you know, I'm God's friend, you know what I mean? Yeah, he'll be back soon. You know what I mean? And then just mysteriously disappears. Then some next character comes along, which like it's like, you know, then he comes along and he's like, yeah, no, that tree's fine. I don't know what he's talking about. And he doesn't know what he's talking about. You know what I mean? You'll be good. He just doesn't want you to have the benefits of this one. And you'd be like, what? Like, you'd be like, no, I think I'll wait until he gets back to really sort this out. You know what I mean? Like I'm not just gonna eat something. That's a serious allegation there, that I'm going to die if I touch this poisonous tree. You know what I mean? Like, I think I'll just wait for him to get back and have another conversation with him. You know what I mean? That seems like the logical, wise thing that anyone would do. That you're not just going to be like, oh, really? Okay, well, I believe you over the master of the house who just told me that this is his tree and that it will kill me. You know what I mean? So, like, that doesn't really make much sense. You'd be like, so they were obviously, that's an unwise thing. They obviously were gullible and jumped to a conclusion and a choice. That doesn't, but still, you know what I mean? Like, so that it's a hard to believe situation, because if I was in the situation, I feel like I'd be like, you know what, dude, you can just like back off for a sec, or like maybe we'll all get together, you know, I want God right here, you right here, and explain this tree to me in front of me. Like, I want to hear what you guys are, I'll let you guys sort this out, the truth of this, like, you know what I mean? Like, you think like anyone would be like, oh, okay, we'll come to the truth. We'll just wait till he gets home, and then we'll ask him. You know what I mean? You can explain this to him, what you just told me, and I want to actually have a conversation with him first. I'll be like, yo, your friend that was here told me that you're a liar. Like, so I'll let you deal with this right now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you might want to talk to your guest that's in your house. Like, he's calling you a liar. You know what I mean? Like, they should have just, and like I wasn't gonna touch it, like that's the whole point. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, it doesn't make logical sense. Like, the situation and stuff like that. Like, from my perspective, like if I was in that situation where, like I said, you know what I mean? Like, I go to someone's house, and they're clearly my creator. Like, if I was in my dad's house, and I'm like, and then he's like, yo, son, like, don't touch this. Like, you'll die. It's bad for you. You know what I mean? But they don't have the concept of bad, because everything that they've witnessed is good so far. So they have nothing to even contrast and realize what you're really talking about. So that, like, is that why he's allowing it? So that we have some sort of concept of good and evil? You know what I mean? No, because he didn't want us to touch that evil. So he didn't want us to even have the concept of that. So, but like, why put it there then? Like, why are we given the possibility and probability of the situation presented to Adam and Eve? It doesn't make sense. Why is the tree guarded after them doing it? You know what I mean? That doesn't make sense. And then the play on words there. Garden of Eden. Eden. Eating the apple or eating the fruit. Garden the tree with the swords. Like, there's like a lot of like intelligent design there, but also like mysterious like connections that are like, I don't think these things to be coincidence. It could just be like, could be just a symbolism that it takes you to really try to grasp this story, to understand and seek the wisdom that's being told to you through the Word of God. Like, is this to be taken literal as a literal story, or is this to be taken symbolically? You know what I mean? Or both. I don't know. You know what I mean? All I know is when I observe it, it seems like there's some warnings there. You know what I mean? And I do feel like I'm in a similar situation right now, being presented like, are you going to touch this tree of sin, or are you just going to listen to God and wait until he gets home? I'm like, more like, okay, I've done things before and I learned like, yo, that's not the way of God. So I'm like more just sitting and waiting and being like, yo, God, when are you coming home so we can straighten this out? Because I don't want to touch this tree. Like, till I clarify with you what is okay and what's not. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to read it in a book, but like, it's all blurred and mixed up and confused. And I'm in a crazy environment trying to puzzle it over it all. So like, I'm waiting for you to come home to tell me these things and to really guide me. You know what I mean? Because I'm so tired of falling into deception and sin. Like, I don't want to go to hell. I don't want these evil things. So please be a proper teacher and come home soon. You know what I mean? I know you will in your time. You know what I mean? Like, but it's just like, until he does, we're stuck enduring and suffering and just puzzling. And it's just giving more and more time for more and more people. It says that he's being patient so that more and more people will be saved. He doesn't want anyone, so he's giving them time to choose. But it almost seems like the opposite. It's like you're giving so much time that it's giving the devil so much time to make so many people confused and fall to sin. The more, every second that you don't come and put this coming off, it seems like more and more are just falling to death. So what are you waiting for? Wipe out the evil, put us in a good environment, and get it done with already. Like, or else how are we supposed to ever ever grasp the concept of you being good when you're watching people just choose death for themselves constantly all day? It's a hard thing to grasp for a human being that's in a corrupt environment to view a being as being good when you're watching all the people being allowed to self-destruct and be tortured, and that you're told that you have to. So there's something off there. You know what I mean? From my perspective, I'm like, I don't want to cause any doubt to God or Jesus or anything like that. But like from my perspective, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Like, or it makes perfect sense, and I just have to be patient and wait for the good outcome that's promised. And the promise is, you know what I mean? It does. So like, I'm going with that conclusion. I'm like, I'm just gonna wait. I'm doing my best to just endure to the end and wait till the master gets home. To be like, yo, like, waiting, you know what I mean? So like, that's what I'm doing. But like, yeah, like, the story really doesn't make sense as far as like, yo, we're trusting your judgment. You gave us a helper that helped lead us to death. So that reflects your judgment as well. You know what I mean? Like, that you said that this was going to be a helper. You didn't do quite the, like, I couldn't accuse God of being bad, but that wasn't a good helper. You know, and that's not you. That doesn't mean that you're a bad helper, but Eve was a bad helper for us. So I know that's not your fault. That's her choice. You know what I mean? But like, the women apparently are not good helpers for us. Maybe some of them are, maybe some of them aren't, you know what I mean? Depending on individuals and their choices. So, but like, I'm stuck in a world and I can't seem to find any good helpers. Like, all the good helpers that I'm coming across, they're all same thing. A bunch of like, stupid ass making decisions, like falling into sin and death and fornication and misleading. And they're evil trick you. Like, that's Satan and evil trick you. These women come off like they're Eve to me. Like, they're trying to mislead me. For me to even be with any one of them, it's like I have to go off the path. It's like they like dumbass guys. They don't want anyone who's actually on the path, because if you're on the path, then you'll rebuke their stupidity. You rebuke them going to drinking. You rebuke them going to destruction for their own good. You're rebuking them, but they're like, you know, we're in a generation where women aren't even submissive to men anymore. They all want to be like the leader, when it's like they're not obeying God's word. They're trying to be like equal to you. Oh, equality and feminism, and it's the Jezebel. They think they can rule over men. Oh, happy wife, happy life. No, we've seen how that played out already. Like, that's what we're stuck in this shit for. You know what I mean? Like, it's not happy wife, happy life. It's a happy God, happy bod is apparently what I think is more truthful. Like, when I'm trying to keep God happy, I feel like my body's healthier. You know what I mean? Like, I'm healthier, so it's like, I don't know. It's really a lot to process for one single human being. I can totally understand how you guys totally, like, I'm sure you guys are struggling with all this chaos too. It sucks. I feel for you. My heart goes out for you, you know, but I implore you to, like, be strong and endure it, you know, till the end. Keep waiting for dad to come home and for him to send his son or whatever, however it plays out with the, you know, be patient. Exercise the fruits of the Spirit, spiritual exercise. Be strong. Resist sin. Resist that evil. Anything you know that is going to make you stumble and stray from God, resist it. You know what I mean? Like, be strong. You know what I mean? And like, that's all I can really say to people, you know. And then I do my best to try to be an example too. You know what I mean? So I'll do my best. But you know, Jesus was strong. We could see that. He was a very good example as far as, you know, except for like, if you follow his example to drink and you're not strong enough in exercising to not get drunk and let it mislead you to sin, then that's not going to be sanctified. So like, you're not actually following the way of Jesus, because Jesus drank, but he didn't let it become a problem to mislead him to like fornication, fighting, like all the things, car crashes, people, you know, they'll drink, they'll get drunk, pass out while they put food on because they got hungry, and then almost burn. Some of them do burn their houses down and die in fires. You know, you fall asleep drunk with a smoke in their hand, boom, smoke lights up their whole house, dead. You know what I mean? So it's like, we can see that there is death that comes from not being able to control it's to discipline your drinking. So like, Jesus, when we witness him, it didn't go to that. He went to destruction as far as other people killing him, like the devil's clearly went after him and killed him eventually, his physical human body, but they couldn't kill his spirit, and he was still a strong example. And that's why they killed him, because they're like, yo, this guy's influencing people too much. Like, to, you know what I mean? So it's like, and that's basically how I feel. Like, whenever I come around, whenever God sends anyone, they want to kill that person and get rid of them as quick as possible, because more people are coming to God and to love and to awareness. Oh, the truth, opening their eyes, they're coming to God. So they're like, yo, we got to get rid of this. And it's been a battle like that for time and time. So we're just witnessing God send someone, they get killed. God sends someone, they get killed. God sends someone, they get killed. And it's just a pattern that's been going on for apparently since the beginning of time now. So we're waiting for God to reveal his ultimate master plan and wipe out that psycho cycle. It's a psycho cycle of psychopaths always trying to keep you in sin and evil and kill you and like keep you down. And it's like, so we're hoping. There's some of us who are hoping and trusting that like the scriptures say, that God is a good God and a good dad and a good father, and that you're going to come back and like put an end to this finally. You know what I mean? Like, because we're tired of it. Like, I'm so tired of this. Like I don't want to be stuck in a psycho cycle. I know it's partially what I make of it too. Like, I see the blessings every day. I don't try to just dwell on the evil and focus on that. But I mean, if there's a heaven and it's not dealing with the same problems as this, I don't know why I'm not there right now. I'm trying to be as submissive as I can be, and I'm trying to be as peaceful and loving as I can be. Like, you know, I'm trying to be as patient as I can be. So, but when I'm living, it's like, it's hard not to be paranoid and be like, these people all want to put me to death, and someone's going to come forward and try to kill me. Like, for probably trying to do good. Like, that's how it goes. So like, when you try to do good, they're gonna betray you to your death and kill you. So when's this gonna happen? Like, I'm waiting. Like, I just want this over, you know what I mean? Like, but it's like, it's really hard for me to be any part of the world, and it's like I'm trying to convince myself that these people are civilized when I know they're not. Their actions prove they're not. Like, we're a civilized society and not everyone's against you and on your side, but there's this whole group of like evil men that are a cult that won't let you thrive. Oh yeah, so like, we're all civilized. That's why you're all encourage war and killing each other. Yeah, you guys know what you're doing. Like, clearly know what you're doing. You're all a bunch of peaceful people. That's why you're like fighting over oil and money and women, and you know what I mean? Like, you clearly can't let go of all that stuff and just try to be at peace with the spirit of God and love. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to be like, whatever. I don't care about this earthly crap anymore. Get me out of here. like it feels pointless. Like the scripture says, vanity, all is vanity. It's just pointless, stupid crap. Where it's like, God's just basically, it feels like I'm being like tested sometimes to just be like, oh, let's dangle a bunch of treats in front of his face and see, like, or a bunch of like, not even treats, let's dangle a bunch of poison in front of his face and see if he'll partake, or if he's learned his lesson yet. You know what I mean? Like, and then I basically feel like I'm Adam, but alone again. I'm alone. You know what I mean? I'm actually alone. And then like every once in a while, I'll like reach out and trust one person, open up a bit, and then it ends up screwing me over. Something like, man, why don't I just learn my lesson and not trust these people at all? Like, you can't, you know what I mean? But you try to see the best in people and love and stuff like that, but it's like, man, I don't relate to anyone here. Like, I just don't get it. I don't get what I'm doing here. I don't understand human life. Like, it doesn't make sense how the world functions. Putting money before health and pumping gases into the air, warring over gasoline when we could like be tapping into healthier alternatives. Like, this shit doesn't make sense. Like, people are just like, like, this stuff's just so dumb. Like, just want out of here. Like, it's kind of like a torturous, like, life's kind of just like torturous, like, from that perspective, if you dwell on that. But then it's also a blessing if you like to, you know, you can like focus on good things too. Like, there's beautiful little innocent, sweet little babies, you know what I mean? And you can make babies and fall in love and eat a delicious meal, and like, God provides lots of good things too, you know. So it has a lot to do with like how we react to what's provided and what we do with it, and our own personal decisions, you know what I mean? But I'm not in control of all your guys, so like, I could make all the best decisions in my life. That doesn't mean the world's gonna become like a great place, you know what I mean? Like if that were the case, then it would already be like that, because Jesus was great. and the world would be like him if that happened, but they're not. So, like, it only saves, the testimony only saves those who actually choose to follow it and obey it. Then your spirit becomes more peaceful. In the long run, those promises will be fulfilled, that eventually you will be accepted for being that type of spirit for God, for being loving and holy and as righteous as you can be, and being repentant and submissive to God. Then that will be accepted. So eventually that will lead to life. Eventually. But when we're in the world, we'll just get that persecution. They persecuted him, they're going to persecute us. So it's like, life's just like, if you try to be good, you get persecuted. So, but who cares? Be good anyway. I don't care about this earthly stuff. I just want, like, but it basically makes you to be like meek. Meek means like to be gentle, submissive, like basically kind and easily imposed on, is what, like, the definition actually. Easily imposed, to let them impose on you, like force their shit on you, is basically what meek means. So it's basically saying that the ones who are servants, the most humble, that allow people to just dominate and force their evil shit on them, those will be the ones that inherit the earth. So it's like, it doesn't, that doesn't really make much sense either, because it's like, you're just always going to be a slave. That's not even servant. That's not like a willing servant. That, like, it feels like slavery. You know what I mean? A servant's supposed to be like willingly you serve and you're happy to serve. Slave is then you're like forced against your will to serve. You know what I mean? So like God gives us that option. So he's not like enslaving us, but like the devil's trying to enslave us. You know what I mean? Like he's trying to, like, they're trying to force their mark on you and force that way. God's like giving you the option. You know what I mean? Like you can be a willing servant or you can go to death. Like that's your choice. Like, I'll point it out, make it clear to you, this is your choice. Be a loving, willing servant, or be a hurtful, malicious, vile devil, be evil, and go to death. That's like a basic no-brainer. It's supposed to be. So that's what I try to do. I try to be a willing, loving servant. I don't want to be like a malicious slave, like, of evil and sin, you know what I mean? So, but either way, anyway, so like, I just like, be strong, like, the fear comes from like the punishment or of losing. All fear comes from like the loss of like losing your earthly things that you're trying to cling to, of like a family, and like realistically everyone dies in the physical, from other than the ones that the Bible says, like, some of you may not see death, but like from what we know, realistically you're gonna lose everyone in the physical, and eventually even yourself. Like you lose your own body, you get old and you die. So it's like a hard process. Like life can be a hard process of getting attached and loving things and people and then losing them. So and then to try to just be loving through it all and repentant and forgiving and merciful through it all, it's challenging to keep your head through all that. You know what I mean? So sometimes I'm like, what's the point of trying to get so attached to things you're going to lose? Because you can enjoy them while you have them. You know what I mean? So you got to but it's still kind of setting yourself up for a big pain. You know what I mean? Like, the more you love someone, the more you're going to lose them. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't love them, because you got to appreciate what you got when you have it and what God's providing, So it's like, I try to do that, but now I'm at the point where it's like, I enjoy all, and I love people, Like, I love you people too. Like, don't get me wrong. It's not that I don't love people, but I can see the evil and the sin in them, and sometimes I do feel like it's the devil's working through them, and that you're all out to kill me. And that's why they'd be like, you're paranoid schizophrenic, you think everyone's against you, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, I'm just like a biblical realist, where I can see they did that to Jesus. He was like the Lord, like the Son. He's God's Son, and they still turn on him and try to kill him. So, like, I'm not that. I'm no better than him, so like I can't see anyone being like, but that's the thing, maybe that's why they wouldn't kill me and do the same, because I'm not as good as him. You know what I mean? Like, even Jesus said, like, no one is good but God alone. So like, it's not that he was good, he was holy, righteous, and blameless and sent, but I don't know, that's all I could try to be too. And it's like, so you're basically just like expecting death, like, but you just don't know what day. It could come today, I could die today, you know what I mean? Like, it could happen any day. So I don't see the point of being like all scared of it all the time, you know what I mean? It's not that I'm scared to lose my life. If anything, like, I crave it. like I'm actually crave it sometimes where I'm like, I want to go to heaven. So like the only way for me to see that happening is if the rapture happens, or if I die, and then go to heaven or go to judgment on the rapture day or whenever it says. However that process works, I don't know if you go into a sleep like state or if you get judged right away and go to heaven. I don't know how it all works. All I know is like I don't fear it anymore, and if anything, I kind of crave it because I know that I trust and have faith that there's a better place than this. Streets of gold and beings that don't want to hurt you and things like that. You know what I mean? Like where I can love, and won't be persecuted for it, for doing that. So where people will actually love me the same, not cheat on me, treat me like shit, and stab me in the back and betray me, and where I don't have the potential to do that to others as well, because that's not my will. I don't ever want to betray people, hurt people. I don't want to stab people in the back. I don't want to go to violence. I don't want any of that evil stuff. So I don't want any of this earthly stuff anymore. But I'm still like, so why am I here? I don't want it. I love to willingly serve and try to help and ease people as much as I can and try to like. But a lot of the times I'm like I'm just so like craving it, like Christ coming. Like I'm just so craving God to finally put an end to the evil. Like, and then half the time I'm like, is he gonna? Do you have to do that through me, or what's the deal here? How does this work? Like, is this symbolic? Or are you gonna do it through me? But I don't have those powers. I don't have the powers that I witness in the Bible of like blood to water to blood, water to wine, and you can manipulate the water around you, and you're healing people with water, and rub water on your eyes, and spit on dirt on their eyes, and there's all these like things. I haven't witnessed anything like that, like anything even close to like a real miracle like that. You know what I mean? So like from my point of view, like a lot of that is symbolic, but I don't doubt that all things are with God. All things are possible. You could do that. But that always makes me question and doubt and be like, well, then why aren't you doing that? Why don't I see you that yet? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, man. I just don't know. Honestly, that's what I leave it at. I don't know. All I know is that I don't know these things. But I do know and can witness certain things with like the sixes all over everything, and these malicious people that are out to hurt people, and you know what I mean? Like, I don't... But other than that, I don't have any clue what the heck's going on with this. I don't get it. Like, you know what I mean? I get it to a certain extent, where it's like, yo, you're supposed to love leads to life. I get all that part. I get what Jesus said. I get all that, but I don't know what world, like what God's waiting for. He's waiting for, like, the perfect timing. And I just gotta trust his timing. He's waiting for everyone and the exact right time. His timing's perfect and all that. So like, but it could just like realistically, I'm like, this could just all be set up to just constantly give every generation hope that that's going to happen. And if it never happened, there would be no way of anyone ever knowing if it's never going to happen. You know what I mean? So that's where the faith comes in. But realistically, it does. In human terms, it doesn't make sense. So it's, that's a challenging thing to believe and have faith. But I can witness certain things about it being true and the symbolism in it and things like that. So I'm like, yeah, I can either way, even if the Bible were true or not, and I don't like to put any doubt that it's not out there, but even if it weren't, I wouldn't care anyway. It still led me to make better decisions in my life. And you know what I mean? So it still benefited me in ways, clearly. So, you know what I mean? I don't see I don't know, but I trust God's word, and I'm waiting for it to fulfill, and I crave it. I'm like, every day, I'm like, hope this is the day. I hope this is the day that I die or get raptured. Like, I hope this is the day that I get to be in heaven with you, or however it's, whatever your will is. Like, I just hope that I always do your will and that it's always being done according to your good judgment. And I don't even know what, like, I'm like, tell me what to pray for, God. Like, and he already did. Like, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, or be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Thank you this day for our daily bread, both in body and spirit. Your spirit in the body of your Son Jesus. Forgive us our sins and misunderstandings as we forgive those who sin against us and misunderstand us. Lead us not into temptation and deliver us from evil. For yours is the power, the kingdom, and the glory forever and ever. In your Son Jesus Christ's name, amen. Thank you so much, God. And that's all I can leave it at. And I do that every day, you know what I mean? Like, anyway, much love, peace, be strong. I hope you know. I hope you do. I hope you make the right choices, and much love. Live to love to live. Peace. Sometimes when I even pray the Lord's Prayer like that, even when I really think about the Lord's Prayer, like, it doesn't really make sense to me. Like, because it's like the whole, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. I'm like, that sounds like you're praying for evil. Because I'm more like, lead us not into temptation and deliver us to good. That would be the same thing, because then that's like saying that you're bad, that you're from bad, that you want to be in bad and delivered from the evil. It's like, wouldn't it just be better if the evil didn't exist in the first place? It's like lead us not into temptation and do not let evil exist. It's more like it, you know what I mean? Like, that's how I feel. I'm like, I don't want to be delivered from evil. I don't even want to be in evil to be able to be delivered from it. You see what I'm saying? Like, I don't even want to be in the evil to exist for me to even be able to be delivered from evil. I don't even want to be in it at all. Like, I don't want nothing to do with evil. So I'm like, I don't want to be delivered from evil. I don't even want to be in evil's presence to be able to be delivered from evil. I don't even want it to exist. That's how, so like, they went like, even that the Lord's Prayer doesn't fully make sense in that way, because it's like, oh, deliver me from evil. That sounds like you're praying to be in evil and to be saved from the evil, when I'm like, why don't you just pray that it doesn't exist in the first place? And that they're like, I don't want to be delivered from evil. I don't even want evil to exist. I want evil to be gone. I don't want evil to exist. I don't want to be delivered from evil. You know what I mean? I don't even want to be ever in evil to be able to be delivered from it. You see what I'm saying? So like, that the part doesn't make sense. There's things like that doesn't really make sense to me. Like, I get what he's saying. He's just saying, like, you know, lead us away from temptations of evil. You know, of like things like that, and like deliver us away from it, like, so that we don't ever go to it. It's like, but when you think about it like that, where it's like deliver us from evil, that can be that, like, you take the play on words, or like that can kind of sound backwards, where it's like deliver us from evil. I don't want to be in evil to be able to be delivered from evil. You know what I mean? Like, I feel more like praying like, destroy the evil. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be that in your name, holy be your name, your kingdom come, your will be done, hopefully on earth as it is in heaven. It doesn't appear to be happening on earth in the same way that it's done in heaven. Apparently, I can witness that. Forgive me for my sins and shortcomings and misunderstandings, as I forgive those who sin against me, have shortcomings and misunderstand me and us. Lead us to good things. Lead us to you, to God, to good things, and then like not into temptation, and don't ever allow us to be in the presence of evil, or evil to be among us. Destroy the evil and do not let it exist. Do not let it exist, or us to ever fall into it, or even enough, like, don't fall into it or be amongst it to have to even be delivered away from it. Yours is the power, the kingdom, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Like, something like that, like, makes more sense to me. You know what I mean? But like, he could have said something similar like that, and we could have just got a translation, or you just got to take in what he meant by it. But like, that doesn't really make sense. Like, deliver us from evil. That sounds like you want to be in evil and to be delivered from it. And I'm like, I don't even want to be in evil to be able to be delivered from evil. I don't even want it around me. I don't want it to exist. So I'm not like, I don't want, oh, I want to be delivered from evil. Like, I don't even want evil to exist to even be delivered from it. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't, like, I just don't want you to even, I don't even want to be among it at all to have to be delivered from it. You know what I mean? So like that like when I really think about that part, like it doesn't really make sense. Deliver us from evil. It's like kind of saying like you want to be amongst evil and to have God save you away from it. I'm like, I don't even want it to be around it to begin with. I don't even want it to exist enough for you to have to save me from it. You know what I'm saying? Like I wish it didn't even evil didn't even exist in the first place, even if that means that I wouldn't exist. If I am evil, I don't even want to exist if I'm evil. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like... and that's the thing with, like, the evil devils. Like, if they're being tortured and burning and in hell and over, I'm sure they would prefer not to even exist than to be tortured for eternity. You know what I mean? So, like... It's like... And it doesn't make sense that they do still. Like, why do they still even exist? What's the point of just torturing them over and over? Because that's justice, apparently, and his wrath. And they have... But... if the end result is like, you know, are you just going to keep torturing them, or are they just eliminate them completely, eliminate the evil problem? Why are you allowing it to exist? That doesn't make much sense. Like, unless you're getting off and you enjoy torturing them. You know what I mean? Like, which it says that you don't like people choosing evil and hurt and all that. And like, that's the wrath of God. And if you do, why? So you created them and they chose wrong and you enjoy just torturing them over and over? Like, why don't, like, if you're good, just eliminate them completely. Like, I know when to tell God what to do. But from my perspective, I'd be like, yo, just eliminate the evil completely. They don't enjoy being in creation. And they try to corrupt it as much as they can. So, like, why are they even being permitted to even exist? You know what I mean? Because that's your justice. That's what you've deemed. So you're right in that. I get it. Like, I'm no one, you know better than me. But from my point of view, I'm like, it's hard to see good and love in that, you know, and to see you through that. I mean, it's not, because in a way, it's like it shows that you won't stand for any kind of tolerance of evil. Like, I get, like, so like in that way, that's good that you're being harsh on punishing them. But then there's a point where it's like, hasn't there been enough suffering? Like, can't you just eliminate the all? Like, it's when it's like it says, like, all tears will be wiped away in pain and this and that, like, in heaven. But then if they're burning eternally, then that doesn't wipe away all the pain and suffering and things. Because, like, how could anyone in heaven ever be happy knowing that there's other people that used to be or had the potential to be their brothers and sisters that are always suffering and burning and in pain? Like, instead of them just being non-existence, like, then you wouldn't have to worry about that. That's not sad. It's like, oh, they don't even exist. There's like, but to know that there are beings out there that are allowed to be so evil and choose self-destruction for themselves, and that you allow that and then punish them for it. That makes you question, like, why do you even allow that? Like, why? What's the point of that? Like, that doesn't make sense. Like you're supposed to be all loving, so that means, like, you don't want to see people in pain, apparently, and you don't want evil to exist. So why is it existing in hell even? That doesn't even make sense. You know what I mean? Like, why would you ever allow it to have any kind of existence? Like, why would you create such a place? Like, that doesn't make sense either. And I'm no one to say that that's wrong. Like, God's right in all he does, but like, it's hard to comprehend love through that. You're all loving and you don't want evil, but you allow a place of evil to exist and beings of evil to exist. Because if you didn't, then no one else would exist but you. Because you're the only one who's good and everyone else is apparently evil. Or there are holy angels and righteous angels, but they're not God, so they're not good, so they're not, like, but they're not, that would make them evil though, but you know what I'm saying? So it's like, so I'm just like, I'm trying to process it, you know, like, and I'm sure people are too, all over the world have been trying to process this these, the talks of these things, these scriptures for thousands of years, trying to get a grasp on like on God's character through it all, and be like, yo, like, what's the deal with this? Like, how are we supposed to ever come to any conclusions without seeing the results? Like, and then we're just told to trust and have faith. To come to these conclusions, we need to see the results. And that's why, oh, how blessed are those who believe and don't see. You know what I mean? The whole thing of the testimony in the scripture is that we're eager to see you. We're eager to see God. We're eager to be with God. Like, you know what I mean? So that's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be like craving to be around God. You know what I mean? Like, is that why we're being like, it's endure all this crap and being around all this shit so that we can realize how great it is when we finally get to be in God's presence again. You know what I mean? Like, around God again, around the throne and in heaven and this and that, so that's like, like, I don't know. So like, I can get that, like, even that Bruno Mars song, oh, feels like I've been locked out of heaven for too long, that song, like, where he's saying, I feel like I've been locked out of heaven, kind of thing. I can get that. Like, I understand that feeling. I can understand that feeling. But we're not locked out of heaven. We've been all given a clear invitation, and the door's still open. You know what I mean? Like, open invitation to everyone. Door's still open, hasn't closed yet, but eventually he is going to shut the door, lock it, and you will be locked out of heaven. Like, so, you know what I mean? And he's being patient and shutting that door and locking the door. You know what I mean? That's like the best way that I could like try to put it into like human terms. You know what I mean? It's like he's being patient, trying not to slam the door and turn the water on again. And like, you know what I mean? He said he won't, and he gave a rainbow as a covenant to be like, yo, I'm not going to turn the water on and drown them all again. And then what do? They take that covenant symbol and turn it into a deviant homosexual symbol of sexual deviance, like a mocking towards the covenant and promise of God that he wouldn't do that again. And he was very specific that he wouldn't flood it by water, wouldn't flood all the earth by water again. So I would choose very carefully around that, because that's not saying that he couldn't drown you again, or he couldn't burn the whole earth again, or not again, or just burn the whole earth next time, or be creative in the way that he destroys you next time. You know what I mean? So it's like, but it just goes to show like the pride, like it says, pride, like the pride of humans and the cockiness and the just the evil of it, like the mockingness, the spirit of like taking something that God intends as a promise of love, and they're trying to use it for their deviance to try to promote, oh, this is love. Yeah, sexual deviance is love. Like, sexual corruption and deviance that you're directed to stay away from is, yeah, that's what we like. So dumb. Like, it's like the whole, like, there's so many signs, like, and that's in the Bible. It says like they parade their sin like Sodom and Gomorrah in these times. In the end times, it's going to be like the days of Noah. They're going to parade their sin like Sodom and Gomorrah did. And look at it, pride parade and all these different parades of these women walking around with their shirts off and completely showing their breasts to everyone. Meanwhile, there's rapists out there, like, and you're tempting men to go to sin and lust and all that. Like, just like it warns you, because everyone's aware. Like, the awareness isn't back to the garden where we're allowed to just be walking freely naked without consequence. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because there's evil in the world now, so you got to be aware of that and not encourage it. Like, anyway. And then he said, like it says, you will surely, when you eat of it, you will be like God and know good and evil. So he's testifying that God knows evil. But then the scriptures tell us that when at the end, when evil claims to come up to him and says, oh, Lord, Lord, and he's going to say, oh, I know you not, or you never knew me. I never knew you, you never knew me, kind of thing. You know what I mean? So, like, the scriptures testifies that he doesn't know evil. He has no desire to know evil, and that he rejects evil. So, So that could have just been a lie, but God knows all things apparently, so he knows of evil. But it's like, even the fact that that tree exists shows that there's knowledge of the awareness of it in existence before man chose it, and before they even chose it. So how can they be credited, like, how can they be said to have brought evil into the world? And to, like, it's like they didn't invent evil, clearly, because how could they, if there was even a tree of the knowledge of good and evil? So there's a possibility for good and evil. There's the knowledge of it is out there already, so it must have already existed. For there to be knowledge of something, it must have had to exist before. So, but, or maybe the possibility of it exists in existence, but, I mean, you're talking about a whole bunch of holy beings and holy angels are with God in heaven. So, no one's chosen evil yet. So, this would have been the first act of rebellion of Lucifer choosing evil to go against God's command and deceive his creation. And then so Adam and Eve choosing that would be the first act of evil coming into existence through that. But even the fact that the knowledge of good and evil existed first, and that God said, when you eat of the fruit of this tree you will die. He didn't say if you eat of this tree. It's like he already knew that they were going to do that. You know what I mean? When you eat of this tree you will die. He didn't say for if you eat of this tree you will die. And then also, but you know, that's a valid point to be like, okay, well, the knowledge of good and evil, so evil, it was clearly part of existence before this, before they chose this, because there's knowledge of it. So for there to be knowledge of something, it has to be in existence already. You see what I'm saying? Like, oh, the knowledge of good and evil. What is their knowledge of? If evil didn't exist yet, there'd be no knowledge of it. See what I'm saying? So how can they be the first ones to bring evil into the world and into existence by this act? If the tree existing and having knowledge of evil shows that evil must already exist for there to be knowledge of it. You see what I'm saying? That's a contradiction too. But it says knowledge, so that could be like a theoretical knowledge of going against God. The possibility of going against God exists. That would be because that's what evil is, going against God, going against good. So the potential to do that was always there, but no one chose to until this, apparently. So like this theoretical knowledge that people could do this, and that the angels could do this, evil, go against God, existed. So, but they were the first ones who chose it, apparently. So that's the fall of the angels, those evil angels, and the fall of man. So they chose to become the first evil in existence, apparently. But, so like it kind of could make sense that it's like, okay, so there's always there's the possibility and the theoretical thing of, okay, if you go against God, there's this thing called evil. So, but no one's partook of it yet. So how could there be knowledge of it? You know what I mean? Why would God put a tree with the knowledge of it there? You know what I mean? For his beings to find. That's like, oh, I'm going to make a tree that gives people knowledge of how to go against me. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make much sense that you would do that you would teach them, put something there that would give them knowledge of how to rebel against you. You know what I mean? That doesn't really make much sense that you would do that unless you wanted them to fall and go against you and become evil. You know what I mean? So that's there's a little bit of a question there, you know what I mean, and a contradiction where it's like, why is this knowledge of how to go against and rebel against God there? Why is this opportunity being put and being created for angels to be able to mislead man into falling away from God when they're like basically kids in this situation? They hardly know God yet. They haven't, apparently this was right at the beginning, so they were like basically like children, you know what I mean? So it's like, so it must be part of the plan for these angels and man to fall, you know what I mean? Or why would you give the opportunity and the knowledge of the evil, of the potential of someone to do that? It doesn't make sense, you know what I mean? So like, there's a lot to think about there when it's like, that doesn't make sense that you would put a tree. God created all things, the heavens and the earth. He created it all. So he created this tree. He created the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Evil is defined as rebelling and going against God. So why would you put the knowledge of how to do that, create beings, then put the knowledge of how to do that around them? But then it says that God doesn't tempt, so he's not like pushing them to do it, but it's existing there. So like, you know, like it's not that you're tempting them, but you're the one making it possible for them to do that by putting the knowledge of how to do that right there in front of them. Why would you do that? Unless you wanted them to fall. And then but you don't want them to fall, apparently, because the word says you doesn't. You don't want anyone to go to destruction. Well, then why are you putting a tree that can lead them to fall and rebel against you? Why are you giving them the possibility to become aware of that knowledge and to do something unless you wanted them to? You know what I mean? So it's like, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It'd be like, you know what I mean? Try to put yourself in God's position in this story. You're a being, you create an environment, and you're like, I don't want any of these beings to go to destruction or go against me, but I'm gonna put a book, let's say, with the knowledge of how to do that right here. I'm gonna tell them not to touch that book, and the very act of them doing it is the thing that's going to create that creates the possibility of them being able to go against me. So it's like, if you didn't present that situation of giving them the book, then the command to not, then if you didn't do that, it wouldn't be possible for them to be held accountable for that. If they did, because you're the one who put it there. You created all things. So you created the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You put it there in front of. Then you created the beings, and then you put the beings around this knowledge. Then you gave the command not to go from here to there and touch this, but you are the one who is giving them that possibility. Then the serpent, who is also there, you also apparently created. So, and then you allowed him to be in this area and tempt, you're not and to tempt, or maybe he did that against your will, obviously, because apparently it's against your will that you don't want them to go to evil. So, but still, you created the kids, the tree, the possibility, and the situation of putting them around that tree, and you're the one who gave them the command. So that's putting them to the test. So you're testing them to see if they will obey you. And you know what I mean? So, and then it's like, and then they didn't. But if you didn't put them in a place that gave them that opportunity, they wouldn't have even had the possibility to do that. So how can we see that it wasn't your will for that to happen? You see what I'm saying? Because if God didn't want man to fall into evil, he wouldn't have put the tree of the knowledge of good and evil around them, then given the command for them to break, and then when they break it, he wouldn't hold them accountable because That doesn't make sense. Like, oh, now you were going to go to sin because you disobeyed. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. If you really didn't want them to go to evil, you wouldn't put them around a tree that gives them and give them a command with the possibility to break that command and the possibility to fall into evil. So what can be concluded but that you made you made man. You made the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You gave the command not to touch it. You're setting up a situation. You created the whole situation. You created the beings in the situation and the knowledge of good and evil. You created that tree. You put it there. So you created that whole situation. So how could they be held to blame? Because you're teaching them accountability, because they didn't have to do that. But if it wasn't your will for that to happen, you wouldn't even give the opportunity and probability and chance of that happening. So how can we conclude that it's not your will for us to fall into evil and do evil? See what I'm saying? Oh, it's my will to obey you, so that you obey me. So you would have to put everyone in a situation with the opportunity to obey you or not, and see if they do. And if they don't, then they go to punishment. That sure seems like you're creating beings to punish them. Like, I'm going to create them for good things, but I'm going to put an evil thing around them and give them a command that can potentially lead them to hell and destruction and bad. And if they don't listen to me, they're gonna go to hell and destruction and learn accountability for what they get for rebelling against me. Why did you create them and then put the potential for those things around them? How can we view your will as good for us when if your will was good for us, you'd put a bunch of good things around us with no potential to do any evil, no potential to go against you? So to go against you, like, you wouldn't give a command for us to break if you really didn't, like, and then hold us, like, it's because God's the one who actually defines what is evil. So he's the one who gave the command. He's like, don't do this. Adam did that. Adam and Eve did that. The serpent did that. So God can be like, that's evil. So that created the first evil, because God can define that's evil. If you didn't want that to happen, then you wouldn't hold them accountable. You wouldn't give them the command to break, the potential to do that, and then hold them accountable. If you really didn't want them to go to destruction. You know what I mean? And then also, if you were really merciful, you would forgive them for that, because it's like a first mistake. And you'd be like, okay, you disobeyed, but it's like, I forgive you. Here, don't do it again. Don't disobey my commands again. And then maybe put them in another situation where you test them again and see if they'll do it the second time. And if they do it the second time, apparently this is one strike and you're out. This wasn't but that's not forgiving. That's not forgiving at all. That doesn't show forgiveness. That shows you putting someone in a situation and then judging very harshly. It shows you being true to your word, but it also doesn't show much mercy of being like it. And I mean, the other part that doesn't make sense is like, yeah, okay, so the devil is casted out and goes to hell, so that's harsh. That's really harsh, and which it should be, because he knows better. He knows what heaven's like and how great it is, and he's not the child in the situation. He's given great power and authority in the situation. The Adam and Eve apparently seem like they're children. Humans are this new species that don't know very little of God. They know very little of things, clearly. They don't even know about evil yet. It was introduced through that servant. So, who clearly isn't a servant. He's a servant of evil. So, makes sense that he would get the harsh punishment, but it doesn't make sense, like, yeah, you're teaching accountability, but that's pretty harsh. That what, all man has to fall into chaos and then be what, like the flood, like drowning, like who knows how many people were on the planet at that time, like millions of people, this and that, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. All I know is from what I can see is you're teaching forgiveness and love and mercy. You say, I require mercy more than sacrifice. Then why are you sacrificing? Why are you sacrificing? See what I'm saying? Like, why does Jesus have to be sacrificed? Why does anything have to be sacrificed? If you were like, why wouldn't you just be merciful and be like, okay, I forgive that indiscretion. You disobeyed me. I forgive you. Don't do it again. And you know what I mean? So that doesn't really make much sense. You know what I mean? Like that, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't really make sense. It's like we can't really come to the conclusion that we're supposed to view God as forgiving when torture is being allowed, and merciful when torture is being allowed. Even of the blameless, of Jesus is called like blameless, and so why is he being tortured? If he's a lamb without blemish and blameless, then why would the wrath fall on him? Why is that being allowed? Because it needs to be done, apparently. So like what it seems like is like the whole story of it seems like, okay, so this being rose up, created a rebellion, misled the creation away, got casted out. Some war broke out among these beings, got casted out, and then his son had to get sent, and God had to come in his son to basically give a warning where it's like, yo, you're around all these beings and you're going to be prey to these beings. They're going to be trying to get you to go to evil and your own destruction. And then he's witnessing these other beings just corrupting the earth and the environment that he's in. So he's like, okay, I got to wipe them all out and give them a fresh start. So I'll take the best of them and we'll give them a fresh start and we'll wipe them all out. So he flooded them all, and then he watched them again, and then it became corrupt again. You know what I mean? So it's like, but even that, like even the story of that like apparently like God's unlimited. So like why like it doesn't make sense that it would like that their eyes can be closed again. You could remove the serpent and then give them the choice again and see if they do it, or guard the tree with the angels and don't give them that potential to, now that you know that, you know, but it doesn't even make sense that you would have a tree like that unless you wanted someone to rebel against you. It doesn't make any sense. Unless, so like, and when you witness that, like, so that means, like, the only conclusion that you can come to is like, okay, so he created this tree with this knowledge of good and evil, the potential to go against him, gave a command not to, knowing that people couldn't if he didn't give the command in the first place. So, like, say if God wasn't like, God's like, okay, go ahead, eat from any tree you want. Any tree. Doesn't matter about that one either. Go ahead, eat from any tree you want. And there's no rule to break. There'd be no law to break. You know what I mean? So you created something for people to deem them as evil. And you put them in a situation that had them, and put all the factors in place to have them fall into evil so that you could deem them as evil and what? In need of forgiveness. So it just seems like a way to place yourself above, and then, you know, like from a human reasoning, I don't know, because I don't know this thing. I'm going by this book that I read. I'm not trying to accuse God of anything, but I'm just thinking from a logical standpoint where it's like, if you don't want people to go to destruction, you don't put something around them with the knowledge of how to go against you. And you don't give them a command to follow that if they break it, it goes against you. It's like if I had children, if I had a kid, And I'm in my room, and I had my kid sitting here on my couch, and I was like, okay, I want good things for you and love, so be free and enjoy the house. Okay, go ahead. But then I'm like, okay, like this, but I'll put, this is daddy's adult thing. Don't touch it. And I'm like, don't touch this. This is mine. Don't touch it. Then I leave the house, and someone else is in the house, and comes along and convinces them to touch it. One of my generals, one of my closest friends, one of Daddy's best friends comes up and goes, "Oh no, you can touch that. Your dad just knows that when you touch that, you'll be just like him. So now you got what he has." So then that kid's like, "Oh, I want to be like Daddy." So then they touch it, and then they learn. Then Dad comes home and goes, "You touched my stuff. That's it. I'm kicking you out." Kicks him out of the house. And I'm kicking out the friend too. Now you're casted out. We'll cast you down to earth. We'll cast you out into the cold world with the daddy's friend who's a deceiver and a liar and a murderer. But I love you though. And I'm merciful and forgiving. And then you have another son. And this son apparently is the good son. And then you're like, okay, my other children are doing pretty bad out there. So son, I'm going to send you out there as an example for them. And try to lead them back home. So if they become like you, they can come back home. That's basically what it is. Then he sends his son. And then it's like, okay, well, if you obey these rules here, then and you become like me, you can come back home with me. You know what I mean? So it's like, but now they've already been in a corrupt environment for a long time. They've learned for thousands of years all these terrible ways. And then now you're like, and so you put them in a corrupt environment, and now you're expecting them to learn how to be good in a corrupt environment with tons of negative influences around them, tempting them constantly, trying to keep them down in their environment. Then the best friend who saw this good son, this good shepherd son come and try to lead the kids home is like, no, I don't want those kids going back home with their dad. I want them to stay here with me because I used those kids. I raped those kids. They're mine now. I'm going to rape these kids. I rape these kids. I kill these kids. I poison these kids. I hurt these kids. These kids are mine to abuse. And then he kills the good son. And then we're stuck with a story of this good son that was like telling us, yo, there's like this liar murderer around you. He's going to kill me. I'm going to go to death, but don't worry. God's going to raise me back in 3 days. And I'm going to be back home with him. So don't worry. Do not worry. You know, he can't take my life, but try to be like me and then you can come home too. So basically you have to let these evil ones kill you. But you have to endure their abuse until then. And then you'll be able to come back home. It's like, why is this all being allowed? Why is all that torture and process being allowed? What is to be learned from that? Like, the potential of giving people the potential to be condemned and go to hell when they don't want to do that in the first place. If they were in a healthy environment from the first place, they wouldn't have been influenced to go to that destruction. And you're the one who was in control of all the factors that led up to it, but you don't want to be blamed as the parent that put them in that position and gave them a bad commandment to, oh, don't touch daddy's thing, and then they did. And if you didn't kick them out, or if you were forgiving, or if you weren't even like possessive of that one tree in the first place, then they wouldn't have had to go through all that torture and get kicked out and be in the cold world and get raped and murdered and abused by your best friend and all these other followers of his. You know what I mean? But they're supposed to view you as merciful for even just inviting them back home and sending your good son out to try to bring them back home. You know what I mean? But then when you look at it from that position, it's like, if you really wanted them, if you really loved them all, you wouldn't have kicked them out and sent them among to be abused by all these, you know what I mean? Like torture, like, it's like torture, you know what I mean? You're in a corrupt environment, like, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like me, like, all my life, I wasn't raised a Christian. I was exposed to traumas before I even had any choice. You know what I mean? Like, because of the people around me. You know what I mean? Like, I was a kid, my dad would be drinking. You know what I mean? People around me would be drinking. Caused me trauma. You know what I mean? Like, I've been raised with traumas and triggers and substances that, you know, and different things. So it's like, you've been growing, everything you learned was in this corrupt environment. Now you're being expected to what? Repent and be sorry that you're stuck out in the cold world in this crap environment? Like, you're supposed to what? Be better than that? You're in a shit environment. If it's like, so I inherited sin through someone else's choice, so I'm supposed to, and now everything I've known has been a bad environment because of someone else's choice. So I'm supposed to be sorry for that, to get invited back into this place that kicked me out in the first place. You know what I mean? It doesn't make much sense when you think about it. It doesn't make sense. So it's like, but still, what's the alternative? The alternative is what? Apparently there's 3 places: hell, heaven, and earth. Out of the 3, the best apparently seems to be heaven. And right now we're stuck on earth. But we're also among those who are said to be going to hell. Some of us are going to be going to hell. And these demons, apparently, we can see them, these evil spirits working through these people. There's children getting raped daily. So there's people getting abused. How do you ever expect them to rise above that? Oh, through the power of following your son, the good son. Your good son didn't get raped. Your good son didn't go through all that abuse. Yeah, it fell on him when it came to the cross. He got beaten and put to death, but he didn't get raped, from what we know. He didn't get years and years of abuse. You know what I mean? Like, he got the cross, and he got like 33 years on the earth, but from what we can see, he was protected. You protected him when Herod tried to kill him and sent him off to Egypt and this and that. So it's like, but the other ones who are trying to follow him weren't given that same protection. Some of us have been abused very badly. Yet but we're supposed to be sorry to you, to God, when that's not by our choice. You know what I mean? Like, it's not by our choice that we're like, so it's like, if anything, it seems the other way around. Like, the father should be apologizing to the kids for putting them in this environment where they got abused and attacked by this predator. And now they're in this shit environment, knocking on the door, asking to come home. And we're just basically waiting, like, yo, when is dad going to open up the door and let us back in? You know what I mean? Or let us in for the first time, because we weren't even in there before. Like, we weren't even ever in heaven. You know what I mean? So we're about, like, that's what it says. Like, you have to be like a little kid. We are like little kids. We're basically stuck out, like little kids stuck out in the cold, told to knock on the door and that it will be answered. I've been knocking for years. You know what I mean? Knock, knock, knock. When do I get to come into this house with the streets of gold, apparently, where no one wants to hurt me and traumatize me and, you know what I mean, beat me and kill me. Put a mask on my face, stick me with a vaccine. You know what I mean? Like, There's no rapists and killers and psychopaths. You know what I mean? Like, when do I get that? Like, how long do I have to endure being around torture? Like, even being in such a place, it can be like torture. You know what I mean? You said it's not good for man to be alone. Why am I here alone, feeling like I don't have anyone with me and I'm out in the cold alone? I have family members and stuff, so I'm not alone. And there are little pleasures in life, but half the time you're like, knock, knock, knock. Like, when are these trumpets going to go off and we get to, like, your son will come down and bring us home? Like, you know what I mean? Like, or is it all just, like, spiritual? Once you live by the Spirit and your spirit transforms, then you become the kingdom of heaven is at hand, so you're among the kingdom. So your life is peace now, and you know what I mean? Is it all on us to, like, you know what I mean? So is it like spiritual and metaphorical and symbolic stories describing things, or is it literally going to happen? And what are we waiting for? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, it doesn't make much sense. You know what I mean? Like half the time we're told to repent for sins. We're stuck in a corrupt environment. If anything, it feels like half the time someone should be apologizing to us for sticking us in this shit environment. Because apparently it wasn't our choice that led to us inheriting this environment. And it's been generations and generations now, for 2,000 years at least that we know. It's been thousands of years of corruption. You know what I mean? We don't. I'm sure it's getting better in certain ways, and then it's getting worse in certain ways, apparently. But I mean, this generation, we're amongst, like, this is nuts. This is nuts, completely nuts. There's like stories of it. My life hasn't been too bad, as far as, like, I've dealt with some abuse and stuff like that, but, like, nothing as severe as what I hear some of these people are dealing with. It's not my reality, like, dealing with, like, rape and pedophilia and all this murder and stuff like that. Like, I've never had to deal, fortunately, and thanks to God that I've never had anything like that. So I have been protected enough to not have to deal with anything like that. But apparently there's all these people out there that have. And my heart goes out to them, but it's like, what am I supposed to do about that? And, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure you guys have like a similar perspective where you're like, have a hard time to trying to see how God is good and all that, in all this. You know what I mean? Like, allowing us to be in such a corrupt environment, and we're supposed to be like, knock, 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 like, Dad, you gonna let us in soon? Like, we're stuck out here in the cold with a bunch of murderers and rapists, and we don't want to be. Some of them do, apparently. Some of them want to be murderers and rapists and don't even want back in. You know what I mean? But then there's a lot of us that are less like kids, like, yo, knock, 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 it's scary out here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we don't want to fall into sin and choose our own destruction. And there's lots of influences out here that are trying to do that and bring us down. So, like, we're very exposed and vulnerable to falling to condemnation and going into hell. So if it's really your will for us to be saved, then can you send your son back soon and open up the door and let us in? You know what I mean? Like, how much longer do we have to be stuck out here? Like, that's basically what it feels like, half the time. And it's like, I would never try to accuse God of anything. Apparently, God's good and he doesn't do anything wrong in that situation. He just said, don't touch Dad's things, and they touched Dad's things. You know what I mean? So I get that. Like, if I was the dad, I'd be pissed too. I'd be like, yo, you touched my shit, get out of my house. I get that. I totally get that part. But, I mean, it's been thousands of years to the point where it's like, then if they went out and they got kicked out and then it all became corrupt and this deviant, people sleeping with animals, like homosexual deviants and rapists and murderers and serial killers and just crazy drugs, heroin addicts and flocka biting each other's faces off and all this just crazy world nonsense. Like, and then you're like, I mean, before it even got to this level of crazy. It was already apparently really psychotic enough for you to decide, you know what, turn the water on outside and we'll just drown them all. And you know what I mean? So he just shuts the door, locks the door, turns the water on. Everyone just, well, we'll put a couple of them in a boat, and then they'll be fine. And then we'll open up the doors after. And then we'll open up the doors. Everyone's boom. Here's another fresh start. You know what I mean? And then now look at it. Same thing. Just terrible rapists, murderers, pedophiles. Same kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So it's like, how like. Apparently what's happening isn't working. You know what I mean? For a lot of people, it's not the way. You know what I mean? And to some people, it is the way. And we're still the ones who choose Jesus and to try to live that way of love. And, you know, don't judge, don't blame God. Like, don't, you know, go against God. We're like, knock, knock, knock. Like, how much longer do we have to be out here trying to warn people that time's running out to try to be like a kid again, you know, and try to be like a humble kid knocking on the door asking to come in. You know what I mean? Like, well, that's basically how I feel. I'm just like this, just lost, not lost, but just like this kid who's stuck out in amongst a crazy world, and I'm like waiting, you know, I get to serve and try to shepherd some people back with me and be like, yo, dude, like, this is the situation that we're in. We're stuck in this situation where, like, we gotta get back home. Like, this sucks out here. Like, you know what I mean? That's basically what you're just trying to say to people, like, yo, this sucks out here. All daddy's ex-friends are all a bunch of psychopaths. Come with me. Let's go back home. You know what I mean? Just ask for forgiveness and then don't follow their ways and be like them. Dad'll let us back in. You know what I mean? Like, let's go. You know what I mean? Let's go. Make a choice. Let's all go knock on the door at the same time. Let's blow this popsicle stand and get the heck out of here. Yes, but still, like, we made that choice. I've made that choice. It's still not, you know what I mean? Like, but I'm still, my life is heavenly in ways, I guess. You know, it's not too bad. I'm not in like any severe pain. I am in emotional trauma and pain every day of not being with a woman that I love. You know what I mean? So I have to deal with trauma. The trauma of like betrayal, that I feel betrayed on alone with no one to really relate to, like, or, you know, like, I have no romantic love, you know what I mean? I have the love of God in that relationship, but it says it's not good for man to be alone. I'm feeling pretty alone out here, you know what I mean? Like, so, you know, it's not that I'm not content with what I have too, but it's knowing that it's hard to be content and at peace knowing that there's a heavenly place where there's like I said, greater streets of gold and a bunch of people that don't want to kill you. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a lot to process for a kid. You know, that's how I look at it. I'm a kid. I've done some bad things and I'm sorry for that, but I grew up in a bad environment and I wasn't raised properly with parents who they were dealing with the same thing. They didn't have the best examples either. So it's like, and that stems back for generations, you know what I mean? But I'm clearly not choosing sin daily. I'm not trying to drink, smoke, hurt my body, be malicious towards others and myself. I'm not trying to hurt anyone. I'm trying to be as loving as possible. I love God, like, regardless. Like I already said, like, he could destroy me and I'd still have love for him. You know what I mean? And if I trust your judgment, if I'm evil, then destroy me then. You know what I mean? Like, whatever. Like, it's just like being stuck in limbo waiting thing is like a torture in itself. You know what I mean? You're like, am I not good enough, or what have I done here? Like, that's like, I've already repented for what I've done, my sins. Like, I did some bad things as a kid that you know what I mean? Like, what am I waiting for? I've already repented and accepted, like, you know, my responsibility in the wrong I've done, and I repented, and apparently I'm forgiven. So, like, why am I still stuck out in the cold, alone? I don't get it. You know what I mean? Like, why am I still here? Like, when are these trumpets gonna go off? Like, you know what I mean? They're just waiting. Like, it's just constant waiting game of thinking like, are the trumpets gonna go off today? And is the evil gonna be destroyed today? Finally, you know what I mean? Like, but there's prophecies that haven't happened. It says that there's some the city that made all men rich is gonna fall into the sea, and smoke will rise from it forever, and all the earth will mourn over this city. We haven't seen that yet, so we know it's not here yet. So, like, you're sitting there until you see, like, these two witnesses and the city fall into the sea and all these prophecies be fulfilled. You're just basically being tortured. Like, sitting there waiting, feeling like a reject. Like just a sad, lonely reject. Like, just being like, knock, 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 like, you know, like, you gonna let me in ever? You gonna come get me? Am I an abandoned son? You know what I mean? Like, this is like what it feels like. Like, it's like, what is this? Like, what is this? Like, why am I stuck here? Like, I don't want to be here anymore. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, not that it's like too terrible or anything, you know, but it's like, it's lonely and it's psychotic. Like, it's crazy out here. You know what I mean? Like, and apparently it's not where you're at. So why are you, like, it's not crazy in heaven. So, like, why are we stuck here? You know what I mean? Like, those who already chose your son, we don't want to be here. Like, what are we waiting for? Like, you know, you're just keeping us safe until the day when, you know, like, knock, knock, knock. We're waiting. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, so much of this doesn't make sense. And it's like it's just so, like, shitty and lonely. It's like, I don't even know. It's like, or you're just fooling yourself, and then, like, those thoughts come up all the time. Or you're just fooling yourself that, like, every second that goes by, that the word isn't fulfilled and happening in front of your eyes, then, you know, and when it comes to, like, you don't hear the trumpets going off, you know what I mean? So if every second just brings more doubt or stronger faith that, oh, one day it's going to happen, but it's just like, am I just fooling myself into believing a nonsense story that makes no sense at all? Because, like, if you really love me, I wouldn't be going through all this right now. Not that it's, like, too bad or anything, but, like, it is pretty bad having to witness, like I said, personally, like, my life's not too bad. Like, you know what I mean? When it comes to, like, I'm not in, like, severe pain or anything, but, like, besides feeling like a complete reject, lonely, emotionally traumatized child that's stuck out in the cold, other than that, it's great. You know what I mean? But, like, it's like, what are we waiting? What are we waiting for? Like, what are we waiting for? Why? It's hard to picture where it's like, why is this brutally torturous? And how can I see love through it? You know, like, can I see love in torture? Oh, because the torture, you're being tortured for us. You sent your son to be tortured for us. Why does anyone have to be tortured? Why does anyone have to be tortured? Why did Jesus have to be tortured? Why do I have to be tortured? You know what I mean? Like, shouldn't only the ones who want to torture people be tortured? You know, like, it's like Satan wants to torture people, so that makes sense that he would be tortured. You know what I mean? You want to be malicious towards people, you want to give hurt, then they receive hurt. That makes sense. That seems just, but it doesn't seem just or fair that Jesus has to be tortured for me or for anyone else. That doesn't seem fair at all. Like, so, oh, you're a fair God. What's fair about that? Jesus being tortured for what? Adam's choices, Eve's choices, and Lucifer's choices. And all these evil angels' choices. For all of our choices. You know what I mean? So, and then people will be like, oh, so that's torturous to God. So why are you torturing yourself then? To make us realize and feel bad that, oh, we're torturing God with it's not God that's torturing us, it's us that's torturing God by our choices. Well, we've repented for those choices, and there's still torture going on. So that hasn't done anything. Asking for forgiveness through your son hasn't eased the torture yet. You know what I mean? So we're still just like waiting. So we're still being tortured. So, and it says that that's going to happen. It says like you'll be persecuted and maybe even put to death. So that's basically what we're waiting for. So I'm just like sitting around waiting for these psychopaths to barge in my door and be like, oh, you got to take this mark or else we're going to cut your head off. Oh, thank you. I've been waiting. Can you please like send me out of here? I'm trying to get back to my father's house, but apparently I'm not allowed to do it myself. You know what I mean? So like, can you come kill me, please? Like, come put me out of my misery. Like, I've been waiting for this. Like, I've been waiting for either the trumpets to go off and put you evil suckers to death who want to kill people, or waiting for you psychos who want to kill people to come kill me so I can get put into my spiritual form and blow this popsicle stand. You know what I mean? But either way, I just want something to happen. I want this, like, because this is just brutal limbo. Like, this is like stuck in like, what am I waiting for? What are you guys waiting for? If you're gonna come kill me, come kill me. If you're gonna save me, then save me, God. Like, what are we waiting for? Like, you know, but we're not in control. It's only gonna happen at the exact same time when God decides and everyone makes their choice and blah 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 blah. It's like, it doesn't. A lot of it just, it's so hard to process as a single individual in a world of madness that you never really wanted to begin with. Like, it's not that you didn't want it either. You don't want evil. You know what I mean? I don't want evil. I don't want to choose evil. I don't want it. I'd be like you want to be. I wasn't ever in an environment given a wife and everything to eat. You know what I mean? I was never given those same choices as Adam. So how is that fair that I have to inherit sin through another man who I was never given the same opportunity as? There's nothing fair about that. That doesn't make any sense. But then it's like, oh, but when you were a baby, you were pure as a baby, and you were given or no, you weren't, because you inherited sin apparently. So you were still corrupted, a sinner as a baby, a blameless little baby who didn't make any choices to hurt anyone yet, and you were still a sinner, apparently. You know what I mean? Or maybe you were a pure little baby, so you're blameless, but then you fell into sin and you made some choices that led you to sin as you grew up. Yeah, but I wasn't in an incorrupt environment with everything provided for and the proper teaching and warnings. So does it make sense? There's nothing fair about that. There's nothing fair about that. Like, oh, God is fair and just. There's nothing fair about that. It doesn't make sense. So it's like, you know, and it's like, no wonder why people abandon. It says people will abandon the faith and not stick to sound doctrine. No wonder why, because they're sitting around waiting for thousands of years for some trumpets to go off. Things aren't making any sense to anyone, and you're sit there waiting, and you're stuck there just sitting there waiting. Knock, 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 knock. Just knocking on the door all day. Knock, knock. You gonna let us in? Knock, knock, knock. You know, like, but it says it could happen, like, what, it could happen any second? No, it's not going to happen next second, because the prophecies haven't been fulfilled yet. I don't see no city, until this city falls into the thing. It could happen, I guess, because I don't even know. Maybe that city is going to fall in after the rapture. You know what I mean? Timeline-wise, I don't know. Maybe it could happen in, like, a second. I don't know, maybe it could happen like right now, or right now, or right now, but you're just sitting here, knock, 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 two hands, knock, knock, knock. You know what I mean? Like, let me in, please, let me in, please, let me in, please. Like, am I not sorry enough? Am I not sorry enough? If I'm not, then please make me sorry enough to be forgiven. You know what I mean? Like, and I guess that's not a good thing to ask, because then like, what, are you gonna like torture me some more? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I need like wrath. Like, you have some sort of wrath that you need to get out and take it out on me and get this over with, please. Like, you know what I mean? I thought you took it out on Jesus already. Like, you know what I mean? I thought you took that anger out on your own son. Even that doesn't kind of make sense, because it sounds like an abusive father that got mad at his kids for touching his tree, and then you took it out on your other son that didn't deserve the beating for it. You know what I mean? So that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make much sense either. You know what I mean? Like, in this, like, I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm just saying, like, from a logical standpoint, that's the conclusions that come to, like, for me when I think about it. You know what I mean? Like, I just see a bunch of abuse happening. That's it. I see people abusing themselves, abusing each other. Even apparently God's own son has been abused. So God's his father. So you're allowing that? You're allowing someone to abuse your son? Doesn't make sense. How is that a good father? You're allowing your son to be abused. Oh, so he's good and you're good because you're allowing yourselves to be abused for us when you don't have to be. Does any of this have to be? Did they have to choose the tree and touch the tree? Did you have to give the command for them not to touch your tree? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, these are the kind of legit questions I have daily. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not gonna feel bad for raising like normal human questions. Like, you know what I mean? Like, am I supposed to feel bad about that? Like, I'm not ever trying to the unforgivable sin of blaspheming the Holy Spirit or anything like that. You know what I mean? I'm just basically sitting alone wondering what the heck's going on all the time, puzzling over this stuff. You know what I mean? Being like, okay, if there is a heaven out there, which I believe there is, someone can see I'm clearly knocking on the door asking to be invited in every second. None of these angels have come to me yet and even shown me. Like, God answered me with, like, you know, I had a vision and I've had like signet ring and some signs and stuff like that, but like, for the most part, not to the extent of what it says in the Bible about like messengers and angels coming to your servants and abilities to be able to heal things and smite things and stuff like that. I've never seen any kind of real power like that from God yet. You know what I mean? Like, I haven't seen any of that. You know what I mean? I could see some things getting smited in the background, but that like could be just normal natural weather things going on. Like, you know what I mean? That's always been happening. You know what I mean? But they appear to be some sort of signs. You know what I mean? It says you control the waters and gave them their limits and this and that, but it's like, I haven't witnessed anything as far as like, it says like, God's angel encamps around the brokenhearted. That's me. Where is your angels? Where are they? Why are you making yourself known to me? You know what I mean? Like, why am I stuck here talking to myself? Like, feeling like a reject and alone all the time. Like, you're going to show yourself to me? You're going to send a messenger to show yourself to me anytime soon? I'm glad that you did at all. You know what I mean? Had one interaction, like, quite a few interactions, and it saved my life and helped me a lot. But now I'm constantly thirsting and hungering for more, and you said that I won't hunger and thirst for more. You know what I mean? That your followers and believers don't hunger and thirst for things, so why am I sitting here hungering and thirsting and alone? Like, another contradiction.